Hi, Ted Padova here again. In this video, I'm going to talk about frequency separation. Once you learn how to use frequency separation, you're going to find it very helpful, especially when editing portrait photos. There are several steps in setting up a frequency separation, and you can bypass all of those, as I promised in the title of this video, with just one click. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at how we do it. For those of you not completely aware of what we mean when we talk about frequency separation, in Photoshop Elements terms, let's say we have two frequencies on a photo. In this diagram, you see these sharp blue spikes here is a high frequency, and that relates to the texture in a Photoshop Elements document. The red line you see behind it is a description of the color. So when we make an edit, so if I, for example, I paint on this document like so, you can see that I'm affecting both texture and color. And I'll just undo that. Now, when we talk about frequency separation, then I take one of these frequencies and adjust it like so. Now I've got on two different layers, I've got a high frequency for texture and a low frequency for color. So when I make an edit in Photoshop Elements, I'm only going to affect one or the other. So if I affect texture by using the clone stamp tool or by using the healing brush, I'm only affecting the texture. Likewise, if I come down to the color layer, then I'm affecting only the color in the document. This can be very helpful, especially when you're editing portrait images. Okay, so I'll close this file now. No, I won't save it. In the title of this video, I promised to create a frequency separation with one click. Now, before I do that, I want to explain exactly what goes on with the frequency separation. So I'm going to delete these two layers that I have here previously from a frequency separation, and I'll delete those. And let me explain what happens when we create manually a frequency separation. I'm going to duplicate my background layer twice. I'll press Control or Command J to make a duplicate, Control or Command J again to make another duplicate. And for the first layer, I'm going to change the name here to color. And then I'll go up to the second layer and I'll change its name to texture. At this point, we have two layers above the background, the color layer and the texture layer. So I'm going to come to the color layer, and I'm going to go to the filter menu and choose Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I want to blur this a relatively high amount. So I'll just kind of move around my subject here and take a look and see how much blur. I want really enough blur that I'm going to take out a lot of these artifacts. So in this dialog, I think 9 is going to work fine. So I'm just going to click OK. And now I'm going to go to the texture layer, and I'm going to duplicate that layer. So I'll hit Control or Command J to duplicate the layer. And on this layer, I want to go and apply the same blur amount. If I go to the filter menu, you can see that Gaussian Blur appears as the first item up here, and the attributes for that blur is the same as the last blur I made. So I'll just select that. Then I'm going to invert this layer. And I can do that quite easily with a keyboard shortcut. So I'll hit Control or Command I to invert. And then what I want to do is change the opacity here to 50%. When I do, you can see a little bit on the video. It may be hard to see, but you can see that there's an appearance very similar to what we find with high-pass filter, where you can see the contrast between the lines in the image. And this is showing us the texture with no color added. So I'm going to take this layer now, and I'm going to merge it with the layer below. I can do that easily with a keyboard shortcut by pressing Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, plus E, and I've merged the layers. Now on this layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the blending mode to linear light. And that's pretty much the frequency separation. Now, To add a little bit more to this, I'm going to add some layer mask. So I'm going to go to the color layer. I want an inverted mask, so I'll press Alt and click the layer mask icon up here. And I'll do the same for the texture layer. Alt and click. And now I've got 2 layer masks there. So everything right now is blocked out in this file. That's basically the frequency separation that I've created manually. Now I'm going to delete all these. And I'm going to show you how we can do this with one click. I'm going to go to my Actions panel, click on this icon down in the bottom, the down pointing arrow, to open up a menu and choose Actions. And I'm going to delete what I have here because I had that loaded prior to this video. So in the Actions panel right now, I'm going to load an action. And this action I'm making available to you in the description below. You can just download this and install it in Elements just the way I'm doing right now. I'm going to the palette menu and I'm going to open it and choose Load Actions. And what I have on my desktop here, and it's the same file that you have available for download in the description below, this file called Elements, which is the folder name, and inside of that is my frequency separation action. So I'm going to select Elements and click Load, and you can see that Elements is the folder, and right below that I have frequency separation. Now I'm going to select that, frequency separation, and I'm going to click the play button up here, the right pointing arrow, and play the action. And the first stop is the Gaussian blur, where I can edit different values each time I run this frequency separation. So in this case, I'm going to type in 9. I'll click OK, and I'll type in 9 again for the texture layer. Notice that it stops again for the second Gaussian blur, and I'll click OK. And now I have my frequency separation. And you can see that I have my layer masks as well. I'll dismiss the dialog here. And now what I want to do is, first of all, I'm going to hide these top 2 layers. It doesn't really matter if I hide them or not because I can actually see the content below. And I'm going to zoom in on my subject. What I want to do is take out any gross artifacts or blemishes, things of that sort. So I'm going to get my healing brush tool, and maybe I'll select background here and maybe just take out a few areas. This isn't too bad. I'll just, there we go. And let's see. Just take out any blemishes, gross imperfections, things of that sort. Once again, my healing brush tool, and I'll just come in and let's see what else we have here. Okay, we'll come down and take a few birthmarks out of here too. Okay, I think that's fine. I'll zoom out now. And the first thing I'm going to do is start working on the color layer. So I'm going to select the color layer. I'm going to select the mask over here. I want to make sure that I have white as my foreground color. And then I'll zoom in. Let me zoom in on the face. What I want to do is shape the face following the contours of the face. And I'm going to make the skin smooth. And to do that, I'm going to reveal the blurred area that I blurred earlier by painting white in the mask. So I get my brush tool over here, and let's size this brush up. That's Option right click on Windows and Control Option on the Macintosh and left click. And we'll just paint in here and get this skin smoothed out quite a bit. Okay, now what I'll do is I'm going to show my top layer up here. I'm going to click on the mask for texture, and then once again I'm going to have white as my foreground color. I'm going to size my brush tip down. That's Alt on Windows and Control Option on the Mac. I think I might not have had my brush tool selected. So you can see that I'm just making this pop just a little bit on the eyebrows, come down on the lips. Okay, that pretty much does it for editing this file. You can see that the skin is a lot more smooth on the one on the right over here that has my frequency separation than the one on the left. You can see that the skin is not quite as refined as we have on the photo on the right. So that's basically frequency separation. A very easy task. Once you load that action, run the action, then you can address editing the color layer and the texture layer separately.